Welcome to Impact Unicorns, the podcast where you meet inspirational entrepreneurs building the next generation of transformative companies. And now, here is your host, Dr. Indranil Ghosh, award-winning author, investor, and advisor to global leaders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Impact Unicorns. Today I'm delighted to welcome Dave Skibinski to the show. Dave is a serial entrepreneur who has founded 4 ventures and has been part of 12 startup endeavors in his career. But like many of the successful entrepreneurs on our show, Dave had an incredibly diverse career before being bitten by the startup bug. In this episode, we'll find out what Dave learned from 10 years of working under legendary basketball coach Bob Knight, and how he applies these precious lessons to business leadership to this day. After basketball, Dave spent the second decade of his career in sales at GlaxoSmithKline, where he worked on many innovative pharmaceutical products. And it was during this period that he attended an executive MBA course with Peter Drucker, the giant of management science, which was to change the course of his career. Professor Drucker encouraged Dave to think of his career as a collection of 7-year sprints in which professionals must renew themselves to capture new market opportunities. Since then, there's been no looking back. Dave has plunged into a series of successful ventures, which culminated recently in his exit from SnapMD, a telehealth platform that he built with friend and longtime collaborator George Tierney. Now back in his hometown in Indiana, Dave is launching his next big venture, FiberX. FiberX is partnering with Purdue University to produce a series of high-value, natural fiber materials from the millions of tons of waste corn stover that are produced in Indiana and across the American Midwest. Converting this waste into useful materials will not only create new revenue streams for farmers who want to operate more regeneratively, it will create a large number of high-paid jobs in ailing agricultural communities. A fabulous local economic development story in the making. Dave, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. Great to speak to you again, Indranil.
Dave, it's always a pleasure. I'm so glad to have you on the show. You know, on this program, we really like to talk to entrepreneurs with diverse backgrounds and understand their journey, how they got to their first venture and how they've been successful venture after venture. And I think yours is an incredible story. You've been an entrepreneur many times over. I think you're on the 4th venture now that you've founded and co-created, but you've been part of 8 other ventures, I think. So I'd love to sort of start by understanding your life history, as it were. How did you start out? I know you did some work in large corporations, but eventually you got the entrepreneurial bug, and eventually you started building impact companies. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, I was fortunate to grow up in a family that valued education. Mom and Dad did not have a lot of formal education beyond high school, but they were very bright, and they knew that, I think intuitively, they just knew that education was a means to improve your lot in life. And so we were given not only the opportunity to get education, my 6 siblings and I, but we were given a lot of opportunities to try things and get involved and be active. I was, as a young man, we used to scour the alleys for parts from bicycles and put new bicycles together from parts that were otherwise would have been thrown out. I remember, and one of my greatest Christmas gifts I ever got was this plastic see-through engine you could build. And you could build it and see the pistons go up and down. So I've always enjoyed building things when I look at my earliest years. And when you fast forward into my career, I spent 11 years in major college basketball in a very intense environment where we were competing for national championships at Indiana University, and my mentor, Coach Bob Knight. I parlayed that into 10 years, as you said, with what is now GlaxoSmithKline. I started out in the old SmithKline and French days, and I think I was in that in its heyday, where knowledge and science were critical to your success in the marketing of pharmaceutical products. And then towards the end of that time, I got my MBA at the University of Southern California in entrepreneurship. I guess that entrepreneurship must have been an indicator, everyone, that I would be leaving GSK at some point. My general manager, Norm, certainly saw that coming. But he provided me a lot of opportunities to create new things and new programs, even at GSK. Norm was a phenomenal general manager to work for. So I think it's always been that I have always had this instinct to want to build things and create things. Even when I was in the 7th to 8th grade, my grandfather was building a house for one of my aunts and her family, and I got to help build the house during the summer. And so it's just a great environment where people encourage you to get involved, and at the earliest ages and as you continue in life, to be able to build things. And I've also spent time in 2 incubators, actually working with 3, and it was a great time to be able to help companies within those incubators grow. So I think it was just a natural progression to build the comfort and the confidence that it takes, and I eventually did that.
You mentioned Bob Knight, and I also understand that when you were doing your MBA, you were taught by Peter Drucker. Now, these are, giants of their spheres, right? So what did you learn from being with these people? How did that sort of set you up for leadership and business success?
The experience with Coach Knight was phenomenal. He is a tremendous delegator, but as he uniquely does, when he delegates, he also expects you to take that responsibility very seriously. I learned 4 basic tenets of management from Bob Knight and I was 20 years old when I became one of the co-senior managers for his program, and we managed a team of 13 guys that managed everything off the court. But I learned about the importance of setting expectations, letting people know how their performance was going to be measured, providing the adequate resources to get the job done, and then giving timely and clear feedback to people. I mean, if you can do those 4 things in any business, you're going to have a pretty good shot at being successful to some degree. So I was able to take that responsibility that Coach gave me, and I was able to learn from it. And when you're competing at the level we were at that time, literally every year striving for a national championship, and I was working for one of the brightest people I've ever met. Coach, his intellect is incredible, and yet he's demanding. And it was a fun environment because I can tell you it was never boring, and it was always fun for me. So that was fabulous. When I completed my MBA at USC, SmithKline was still willing to pay tuition at that time if you would take classes that pertain to your job. So I went out to the Claremont Graduate Institute and I took a course from Dr. Drucker, who is, as you know, coined the terms knowledge worker and knowledge economy. And that, in fact, was what the title of the course was about. And it was tremendous to sit and see this man already in his early 90s talk about how the modern economy. And what I got out of that, the thing that I remember most that he talked about, was that he believed, at least at that time, that as a knowledge worker, you are working in about a 7-year sprint. It's almost like agile software development. If you apply that concept to your life and your career, that every 7 years you needed to regenerate your knowledge, because as your knowledge is used, it becomes overtaken by new things in a knowledge economy. And we certainly have seen that in so many industries. And I think that experience worked speaking and hearing from Dr. Drucker for about 15, 16 straight weeks. It really gave me an appreciation for how I had to be able to reinvent myself every 7 years to stay highly relevant in the market.
That is exactly what you seem to have done, actually. So maybe we fast forward now to your first entrepreneurial venture, and then how each venture has built on the success, the skills that you developed, the network that you developed of the previous one. Because I think, this sort of continuous building, if I can call it that, not just continuous improvement, but continuous building layer upon layer of capability, network, and know-how seems to be, what you're talking about in terms of sharpening the saw and keeping fresh.
No, absolutely. The first venture that I formed was co-founded with my good friend and business partner George Tierney. We had an agency called Quantum, was to work with emerging companies and help them refine their business strategy, prepare them to go out to raise money, and then build their initial brand and build a communications platform for them to go forward. And we had good success at it. We did that for about 8 years. But it's one of those businesses that if you don't scale at the right time, if the right opportunities aren't there, you're going to remain a small boutique agency. And we had visions of something better because we had done really great work for a lot of good clients. So we said, let's look for another big thing that we could apply our talents the way we did for clients. I was volunteering at USC for one of my professors of entrepreneurship on a Sunday morning, and I saw a presentation by a physician about telemedicine in a children's hospital. And that led to the founding of the second company I was involved in, SnapMD. And with SnapMD, we saw this opportunity for telemedicine to be used by the incumbents in healthcare. While there were a lot of startups doing direct services as a service provider, we felt that there was a market for a private label platform in telemedicine. And so we took those skills we had from Quantum Method, applied them directly to our own company, and we did good work. And we can talk about that a little bit more in a moment. At the same time, we also had created a company called Intravera. A former client came back to us and said that he had some ideas around a natural remedy for bruises for patients that commonly bruised. And so we created a company called Intravera, and we launched a series of products, one of them called BruiseMD, and we got that into some level of distribution. But those are hard businesses to gain shelf space, and so we ended up selling the rights to that product and the brand to a third party. And then as we were going through with SnapMD, that eventually led to the company I'm working on right now, FiberX, which is an exciting opportunity in recycling and agriculture. And I think that the opportunity here is very large, and it has a lot of derivative businesses that could come from it. And that's why it's exciting to me right now.
If you're enjoying Impact Unicorns, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to receive notifications of new shows. Bring the most relevant impact venture stories to the podcast. If you would like to review the show, go to the Apple Podcasts mobile app or iTunes to leave a rating and review.
Just to talk a little bit about SnapMD, because I think that it truly is an impact business because of the health impact, the social impact it has the possibility to create, increasing the access to healthcare. But I really wanted to talk about your business model because, as you pointed out, there are many telemedicine platforms that try to disintermediate the doctor, disintermediate the healthcare system in a way by allowing you to generate a consult with a pool of doctors out there that you have potentially no relationship with as a patient. Now, you may be able to get some immediate support and it has some value, but what your model was actually to try to enable a patient's own physician and healthcare provider and to enable the health system. So I'm intrigued to hear how you architected that business model and how it worked out.
Well, the original business model, because of Dr. Morse, who had the idea I saw at USC, the original model that we were going to pursue was to build a national network of the top pediatric medical centers in the country. We felt that there was, and there continues to be even still today, many children with advanced diseases or lifetime diseases do not have access to the best of medical care in America. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if every child in America had access to the incredible expertise at a children's hospital? It was very hard. The network effect was going to take too long to build that business, so we pivoted. And as we spoke to a series of CEOs, we saw the opportunity because every CEO, the first question they asked was, I understand what you're trying to do for us through telemedicine, but whose brand is going to be in front of my patient? So it didn't take very long to figure out that there was an opportunity for a private label telemedicine business. And then as we examined the market, we saw that building that application to handle many different types of medicine would have greater utility. And so what we eventually built was a health system that was digital. And the exciting thing, Indranil, that made it an impact business was that we had over 45 different clinical use cases being offered on our platform. And that was exciting because, and then as COVID hit, we saw a massive spike in the number of patients that were being seen on the platform and the number of providers using it. But the fact that we had patients with depression and other mental illnesses and behavioral conditions treated on the platform. We had patients with chronic diseases like heart failure and stroke. We had people getting every form of counseling for different medical conditions, and the role of diabetic educators in managing patients with diabetes. That was really fun to me because we knew every day we were making an impact. In fact, I would continually tell our staff, while our business definition is we're an enterprise software company, our mission was really to provide greater access and greater convenience for patients to get the care they need from their provider of choice at the time they need it. And having had a number of family members have advanced medical conditions, maintaining that trusted relationship between a patient and provider and having that continuity of care. There's a role for standalone telemedicine companies in the market. That's been proven for sure. But when you get a diagnosis of congestive heart failure, type 2 diabetes, emphysema or COPD, no longer is single episodic care adequate for you. You need that continuity of care. And I told our staff, if you can't get excited coming to work to help enable that, you're probably at the wrong place, and let us find you a new opportunity somewhere else. And it was about that simple.
Yeah, no. And I think the customer base that you built up was incredibly impressive. I don't know how much of that you can share, but could you give us a sense of how many patients, how many hospitals and physicians it encompassed?
Yeah, we had, I have to be a little bit cautious because of my separation agreement, as you know, with these things. But what we publicly put out was that we were seeing upwards of 50,000 patients being administered care on our platform, as well as other follow-on care they were receiving. And we had in the range of 7,500 doctors on the platform at the time that I was still with the company. So it was the diversity of the care that was being offered. We even had, at the time of COVID, we had 4 companies in health systems that we supported with COVID care. And they were being able, in one case, they were a very novel use of the technology. They had patients in a university dorm that was closed for classes at that time because of COVID. And it was basically a step-down unit where patients were being monitored and before they were released to go home to ensure that they were fully stable. And we took a lot of pride in helping them troubleshoot the best way to roll those programs out. It was done very fast, but it was very good work and very important to help combat the COVID crisis. So we felt very good about what we were doing with SnapMD in that way.
Yeah, and I can see how, again, with these 7-year sprints, you're building one experience after the another. So the healthcare experience at Glaxo, the digital media experience at your first startup, kind of combining the two into this software as a service platform in telemedicine for health systems. And then now, tell us about FiberX. How does that fit in to the narrative?
It would naturally look like a hard left turn, right? But actually, back in 2006, 2007, when we had our agency Quantum Method, we were engaged by a group of individuals who were forming a company to do some of what FiberX is planning to do. So they were working with the University of Wisconsin and the U.S. Forest Service lab, and this idea of turning agricultural waste products into higher value goods has been studied academically for well over 20 years now. But all the market forces weren't right for it. There are a number of factors that didn't make it highly feasible, literally back in 2006 and 2007. But I believe that those market conditions have changed. Some of the technology that's used in farming has made the case more solid. And so when I was leaving SnapMD, I was looking for another big opportunity, an impact opportunity, as we've been discussing. And I happen to be from a town in northern Indiana, just outside of Chicago, called Hammond. This is Hammond, East Chicago, and Gary, Indiana, are on one of the heaviest industrial pieces of land in the world. Steel mills, foundries, refineries, and the like. And yet that area is a ghost of what it was when I was a young man. The population is probably 40% of what it was because of lack of jobs. And so I get home pretty frequently. And yet Indiana at the same time is the number 5 agriculture state in America. It is the number 5 state in America growing corn. It is also a big producer of soybeans. And so when I was looking for another big opportunity, I looked at the research we had done with our prior client in this area, and the market still had not evolved, and yet the opportunities were there. And did a lot of research in the last 6 months, and I'm at the point where the formation of the company is near term. We've done I have led a very significant feasibility study, which is probably the greatest thing I learned in my MBA, is how to assess ideas and turn them into reasonable and commercially viable concepts, and have rounded out what that concept is now going to look like. Burn out of seeing what we had done in the past with the client, trying some of this, and kind of restarting that. But really this opportunity to help my hometown area in northern Indiana, and at the same time help the farmers of Indiana create what they would call a co-product. In addition to corn, we are going to take the stover off the field. Stover is the corn stalk, the leaves of the stalk, the corn husk, and the cob, because these phenomenal machines that John Deere and other make, corn off the cob right on the field. We are going to take all of those organic residues that are considered waste products and turn them into a new co-product, which will produce a sustainable source of income for the farmer. And we think that's good for the farmers of Indiana, and we will create new mini mills of sort to produce jobs in mid-sized cities and counties in Indiana, and it'll be headquartered in my hometown, which is fun to think about.
Over the past 20 years, I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs to build impact unicorns. In my experience, every company that has a transformative positive effect on the world does so by building strong partnerships with communities, investors, and governments to solve society's biggest challenges. If you'd like to learn more about how innovative entrepreneurs can help to build a more sustainable and inclusive future, read my award-winning book, Powering Prosperity, A Citizen's Guide to Shaping the 21st Century.
Well, one of the things that I love about this particular project is the local developmental impact. So you're trying to reverse decades of economic decay and downsizing, because agriculture and industry have downsized, and these places lost population, lost tax revenue, and in a way diminished in their ability to rejuvenate themselves. So they need a new economic stimulus. And funnily enough, what you're going to use as part of that stimulus is what was previously considered waste. So stover is either, just as I understand it, just used to cover cropland to prevent soil erosion, and really doesn't have that much economic value. But what you're talking about is taking some of the excess and converting it into much more valuable natural materials for construction and other applications. And on top of that, of course, you're recycling waste, which if it decayed might have a greenhouse gas emitting effect. So there's a lot of positive impacts here.
Indranil, it's interesting to sit and meet with a group of farmers. Number one, you realize just how sophisticated they are. These aren't people that just ride a tractor, at the start and the end of a season and grow a bunch of stuff. These are very sophisticated, very intelligent people. They are well attuned to the concept of net zero carbon farming. They are understanding their customers' needs for their sustainability gradings and meeting their needs. And when you go through and you talk to the farmer, they see both the environmental opportunity here and the impact that will have. They see, of course, the economic impact for them and their farm operations to keep them viable and sustainable. And yet they see the societal impact on carbon in the environment. And talking with them, they are anxious to be a part of the project and are willing to work with us to do some of the R&D to find the most efficient means to do this so that we don't actually burn more carbon to do it. And so we're going to be partnering with them and being able to produce revenue for them, and at the same time have them help improve the processes by which we do this. Our first line of product will be an OSB type board, an oriented strand board. That's a $15 billion market. And so these are very big markets. These products are used for everything from sheathing for flooring, the sheathing on walls in a new home, the sheathing for the roof. They're used as components in I-beams. They're used in furniture. They're used in cabinetry. They're used in recreational vehicles. And by the way, my home state of Indiana leads the U.S. in all three of those markets. So it's kind of a unique opportunity where we're going to take this biological waste product, turn it in, using it with some combinations of clean resins, some of which are going to come out of Purdue University's chemical engineering department, but turn them into mass production, high value products. And we have three major industries directly in Indiana that lead those industries in the United States that we hope to build a customer base with, among others.
In some ways, this could be the first of many use cases or applications, because maybe you can walk us through the whole cycle here. So you're growing the corn, and there's this corn stover byproduct. Now, currently, I think a lot of it's just used to sort of lay on top of the land to prevent soil erosion and gets, composted back into the soil. But,
yeah, Indranil, there's actually three uses of stover today. Mm-hmm. One is a portion of it remains on the farm, either depending on the agriculture strategy of the farmer. There's both till and no-till farming today in deployment. If sometimes the stover just stays, they let it naturally decay, and then they go to plant the next year. Other farmers till it in to, as you said, improve the nutrient quality of the soil as well as guard against soil erosion. Sometimes, though, they will collect the stover and use it, and they add other components to it to make a feed for cattle and other purposes. And then they also use it for bedding within certain areas with different farm animals. But none of those, to your earlier comment, are high values of what that material could be used for, and that's what we propose to do.
And is it true that if you start going to more regenerative farming methods using less tillage, you won't need as much of that stover to preserve the quality of the soil? You'll actually have more of it available for these higher value uses, therefore unlocking more economic potential in the places where they're originating.
Yeah, it's a combination of that, and then also the agricultural ecosystem where you are farming. So Indiana is very fortunate, and it's similar to about 5 or 6 other states, where the soil quality, the precipitation in the area, and then the yields off these farms are tremendous in Indiana. For instance, the corn yield this year, the reports are it may be as high as 190 bushels per acre, where literally a dozen years ago it was closer to 100. And there is a ratio of about 1-to-1 corn to corn stover production. So the higher the yield of corn, the higher amount of stover that is produced. So we're going to be able to go in and in many cases for the farmers help solve a problem. In some cases, they actually have too much stover, even if they did want to just till it in or leave it in the field. So what we're going to be able to help them do is we will only need to take about 20 to 25% of the stover off the field. The remainder can remain there for their primary in-field purposes. And then we're going to take and process this material and maximize its value. And we actually have now identified a minimum of 3 primary businesses out of our stover operations itself. Number one, we will take the leaves and the husks to be used to make oriented strand board. Number two, working with Purdue University as a partner, we are going to create out of the lignin that is naturally found in stover, we are going to create a biologically safe glue or adhesive to be used in making the oriented strand board. And then third, we are still going to have agricultural waste products such as some of the corn stalks that we bring into the bale of stover. Well, we're going to be able to chop those things up. And for instance, one of the products could be pellets for ethanol production or briquettes that could be used as a replacement for coal in coal burning power plants. There's this tremendous agricultural co-product sitting in the field. We're going to pay the farmer a fair rate for it. We're going to extract it off the farm appropriately and safely to maintain the health of their farms. But we are then going to create 2 to 3 initial direct products out of this. And then you can start to think about the derivatives of the products that can come from this. We can make shipping pallets. We can make manufactured and engineered flooring. We can make I-joists and I-beams out of this. So you start to think about all the products that use wood. As I said earlier, last week I was in Elkhart, Indiana, and toured 2 RV plants. There's a tremendous amount of wood in recreational vehicles, as well as in the major cabinetry and furniture manufacturing operations in Indiana. And we're going to try to convince them that a greener product in the home is better for their customer and will help them with their sustainability ratings as well.
Well, that's a phenomenal strategy. And you mentioned that just one of those segments was a $15 billion, business per year. So this is
just to give you another data point. Just in Indiana, the furniture and cabinetry markets combined is over a $3.5 billion industry. It's harder to put a number because many of the companies are private in the recreational vehicle market. But the greater Elkhart, Indiana, which is a town in north central Indiana, 80% of the RVs in the world are manufactured there. So these are very big industries right in our home state, but there's a lot of construction going on, and trusses and I-beams and things like that are a tremendous opportunity. And we're also going to look at a variety of other uses in agriculture because we have such a rich agriculture market, such as Indiana is one of the top 4 states in the production of watermelons and cantaloupe. Well, those are heavy agricultural products to move, and we can create products to help them do that safer and better.
Is there any technology that you're applying here, whether it's on the agricultural side to, help improve agricultural methods to free up the stover for the application, or the processing of the stover itself into different, products?
I can't go into detail about some of the ideas we have because we're going to consider those proprietary, but we have certainly recognized how to part by meeting with a large group of farmers now and the implement companies themselves that make the machinery. Number one, they have continually been improving their machinery to do these types of things. Number two, there are techniques and settings that you can put on the combines themselves of how the stover is processed while the corn is being harvested. There are techniques and better equipment now. For instance, one that's publicly available. There are trailers to carry up to 20 bales of stover at 12 to 1,500 apiece. And literally, you push those bales on with a lift, and when they get to the location to unload, you pull one bar, and all 20 bales fall very easily and swiftly off the device that allows the tractor to pull that thing through, so you have high throughput. So a lot of it's a novel use of existing technologies. We are also working, as I said, with the chemical engineering department at Purdue University. There is a world-renowned scientist in adhesives and binders, and with the work that he has done, we are going to venture and join into a program to create another cleaner adhesive. So, for instance, there are soy flour-based adhesives today, but you actually have to take the food product that you're growing to turn into a resin. We, again, are going to take a waste product from agriculture, access the lignin that is naturally in that material, and from the lignin make a binder that we can use in the manufacturing of our products. So there is tremendous opportunity. And then, of course, Indranil, besides the technology, there is the need for sustainability and the awareness of the need for that across not only Indiana and the U.S., but the world, that we have to be better stewards of our environment. And so that environment that we are starting this company in is much more conducive to success because the customers, our customers, and the farmers' customers are looking for sustainability as part of their business models now. So all of those things combined give us a lot of tailwinds behind the business opportunity.
And that's fantastic. And again, I just reiterate, it's great to hear these stories where so much of the activity is happening locally. So you're engaging the local universities, local scientists, the local talent, the local farmers. You're developing technology, creating a lot of higher value products and jobs. So it's a tremendous, all around impact venture.
So let me address that a little further, if I may, Indranil. So in addition to our partnership So we're built. What I'm doing, part of the building of this, because this is a big initiative, right? We want to prove this in the state of Indiana and then go beyond. But we're building a coalition. So we are tapping the resources of Purdue University's main campus in West Lafayette. Purdue Northwest, which has a campus in my hometown, has a commercialization center and a NIST MEP program to help companies refine their manufacturing processes. We are going to be partnering with some academic institutions in southern Indiana and with a local government and economic development officers there because we've identified our first probable location to do this. And then what's really fun is we've got the attention of the Indiana Corn Growers Association, the State Department of Agriculture and its Economic Development Department, the Economic Development Corporation for the state, and then a group called AgriNovus, which is a nonprofit that looks for new business opportunities for agriculture for Indiana's farmers. So we feel really great about partnering with the academic institutions. Purdue, as one of the top engineering and ag schools in the country, if not the world, has been a phenomenal partner so far. But we're also partnering. I've met with the local government entities up in Northwest Indiana where we'll put our headquarters and our R&D and prototyping facility. But we've already talked about putting either a pallet manufacturing plant or a engineered flooring plant in that area, because you can't start 50 small businesses and have a huge impact. It will have certainly an important impact on those persons that start those businesses and the people they serve, but we need a bigger economic driver. And I think FiberX can be part of the solution for Northwest Indiana. And I take great responsibility and pride in hopefully being a part of that.
And actually, I would say that is unicorn thinking right there. I like the quote, it's not 50 small companies, that's great, but you've got to create effectively the mega platform that's going to drive prosperity across the state, the country, and the industry. Where are you with funding on this? Because I know this is still a relatively early stage, but you're moving super quickly. How's that going?
So we're doing what I've learned from my prior ventures, parallel paths to funding. So one is there is significant funding available. I shouldn't say significant, a good amount of funding available from state and federal sources that we are working and applying for. So there are grant programs looking to fund agronomics and ecological recycling projects. And so there are a number of those. The Purdue University has just released and has another fund that they've made more widely available that we'll be applying for. We're looking at an SBIR grant right now, or an STTR to access that kind of non-dilutive funding. At the same time, we've already had introductions to significant venture firms, and we're in conversations with them now that specialize in agriculture. This is a unique environment when you think about who we serve and what we serve. I was reading the masthead for one of them, and it talked about that agriculture feeds and clothes most people in the world. The growing of cotton, the creation of food products, and to be part of that and have people that understand it, understand the distribution channels, help us with partnerships to, we're going to have to recruit the farmers to allow us to enter into contracts to access the stover. So it's a lot of working parts, but we've got a number of parties that are very interested, and a couple of whom have shown an interest in even leading a deal for us. And as you know, that's one of the toughest things to do, is to secure your lead on any round of funding. And these funds are large enough that they could do follow-on rounds. So, you learn those hard lessons from your earlier ventures about how and where and when you source funds, and you look for the value add that they can all bring, all those investors. And I'm very confident we're talking to the right people right now.
Well, that's terrific, Dave. And look, I'd love to catch up with you in a few months down the line, a year, see how things are going along. But I think some of the lessons that you've learned from your previous successful ventures are coming, full circle and converging here. And this is a great story to watch, FiberX.
Well, thank you. It is a fabulous opportunity. It's an extraordinarily large opportunity. It's good for the planet. It's good for the local economies across the state of Indiana as we build multiple plants. and it's good for the people that will work there because we will pay them a good and fair wage to do their jobs. And with the help of resources, the educational resources in the state, we're going to use them to help train people to enter our new industry. And I feel really excited about that. So thank you for the conversation today.
Dave, it's always a pleasure. Thank you. It's been a terrific time talking to you.
Thank you, Indranil.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Impact Unicorns, don't forget to rate and review this show by scrolling down and clicking Rate This Podcast. And join me next week as I talk to more inspirational entrepreneurs building the next generation of transformative companies.